The port. Only my children were missing from the passenger list. My mother smiled. Oops, family-only booking. My sister grinned. Thanks for the ride, saved me a taxi fare. My son teared up. Mom, not family? I held his hand and walked away. Days later, they begged for help. The morning sunlight streamed through the window of Amy Wilson's high-rise apartment in San Francisco, gently illuminating her face. She had already completed half of her morning routine. Taking a sip of coffee, she organized the day's schedule in her mind. As an accountant for a major corporation, her days were always meticulously planned. Mom, I can't get my tie right, Aiden's voice called from the bedroom. Amy smiled, set down her coffee cup, and headed to her son's room. 10-year-old Aiden stood in front of the mirror wearing his school uniform. His blue eyes and brown hair were the spitting image of his father Michael, who had died in an accident 5 years ago. The resemblance sometimes brought pain to her heart, but it was also a great comfort. Come here, Amy said gently, kneeling in front of Aiden and taking his tie. Watch carefully. It's important to learn how to do this. While her nimble fingers tied the tie, Aiden watched with a serious expression. He was quick to understand things and always curious. He seemed to have inherited Michael's intelligence and her practical nature. Grandma said she'd call today, Aiden said. She mentioned something special. Amy paused for a moment. The word special from her mother, Carol, often had hidden intentions. Since her husband's death, Carol had been obsessed with maintaining her position in society. Her showy and domineering personality always pushed Amy to blend more with high society. I see, something like that, Amy replied lightly, finishing the tie. There, perfect. Breakfast is ready. Let's eat quickly. On her way back to the kitchen, her smartphone rang. Her sister Vanessa's name appeared on the screen. Amy answered with a sigh. Amy, did you hear from Mom? Amazing news. Vanessa's voice was high with excitement. Vanessa had jumped from job to job and currently worked at a high-end boutique, but spent most of her salary on designer items and social events. Her spending habits were a source of tension within the family. But Amy loved her sister and tried to support her as much as possible. I haven't heard yet. Mom said she'd call today. Oh, you're always behind. Mom has booked a Caribbean cruise. For all of us. Amy raised her eyebrows in surprise. A cruise? How? Her mother pretended to live a wealthy lifestyle, but in reality, she lived on the pension left by Amy's late father and monthly support from her ex-husband Bill. A cruise should have been far beyond her budget. You know Mom's friend Judith who works at the travel agency? She got us a special discount. It's a family discount, so you and Aiden have to come with us. Amy leaned against the kitchen counter. Adjusting her work schedule and taking Aiden out of school wouldn't be easy. But after Michael's death, her mother and sister had at least on the surface supported her. She felt indebted to them. When is it? Next week. Sorry for the short notice, but we can't miss this opportunity, right? Amy thought deeply. Recently, she had begun repairing her relationship with Michael's parents, Robert and Martha Wilson. After Michael's death, she had temporarily distanced herself due to grief and loss, but she now wanted to nurture the bond with the grandparents for Aiden's sake. I'll think about it. I'll decide after I talk to Mom about the details. You're always like that. Sometimes things don't have to go according to plan, Vanessa complained. After hanging up, Amy shook her head. Her sister was always impulsive, with no planning skills. In contrast, Amy was cautious, always thinking carefully, especially about matters concerning her son's future. Aiden came into the kitchen and grabbed a cereal bowl. Mom, was that Grandma calling? No. That was your aunt. Grandma and them are planning a cruise. Wow! Aiden jumped up excitedly. Are we going too? Amy smiled at her son's joy-filled face. He rarely took vacations. After Michael's death, she had immersed herself in work, making financial security her top priority. Aiden might have paid the price for that. Maybe. But I can't promise. I need to check my work schedule first. But in her heart, her decision was already forming. Family time was precious. Carol and Vanessa were her family at least. That's what she believed. Amy gazed out the window. She could see the bay stretching beyond the skyscrapers. Somewhere her intuition was sending a small warning, but she ignored it. Instead, she thought about her son's smile and the memories a family trip might create. I'm so glad you could come, Amy. Carol placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. San Francisco's port basked in the morning sunlight, bustling with activity. The luxury liner Ocean Princess was docked at the pier, its massive white hull gleaming against the blue sky. Amy nodded with a smile. I'm surprised you planned such a wonderful trip, Mom. Life needs some enjoyment, Carol said. She wore designer sunglasses and a flashy hat, drawing attention from other passengers, especially for someone like you who's always working. Vanessa, wearing a flashy summer dress, was taking selfies repeatedly. I can get the perfect Instagram post with this background, she exclaimed excitedly. I heard there are celebrities on board. Aiden looked up at the ship, his eyes shining. It's so big. Is there a pool inside? Of course, young man, Carol answered indifferently. Her eyes were already scanning the other passengers on the pier, particularly the male passengers. Amy put her arm around Aiden's shoulders and explained, there's a pool, a movie theater, and activity rooms for children. Taking time off and allowing Aiden to miss school hadn't been easy, but Amy was satisfied with her decision. Seeing Aiden's excited expression made it all worthwhile. Time for boarding procedures, Carol said. She was whispering with Vanessa, and both seemed satisfied about something, smiling. Amy felt a bit nervous. Do we have everything? Passports? Vanessa rolled her eyes. You don't always have to worry so much. Just enjoy yourself. At the boarding counter, uniformed staff greeted them with smiles. Good morning. May I have your reservation number, please? Carol confidently presented the reservation confirmation. The Wilson party. While the staff verified the information, Amy looked around. There were many other families, with children jumping around excitedly. Aiden quietly held her hand, his chest swelling with anticipation. The staff member confirmed their names while handing out boarding cards. Then, he showed a slightly confused expression. It seems I can't find a reservation for Aiden Wilson. Amy's heart skipped a beat. My son's name isn't listed. The staff member checked the computer again. I'm sorry, but the reservation for this party is for 3 people. Amy looked at Carol in confusion. There must be some mistake, right? Carol hesitated momentarily, but quickly covered it with a smile. Oh, sorry. This is a family-only reservation. What are you saying? Amy's voice had anger mixed in. Aiden is my family. Technically, Carol seemed to be choosing her words carefully. This promotion is for adults. Children require an additional fee. Vanessa patted Amy's shoulder. Thanks for bringing us. Saved us taxi fare. Amy froze. The meaning of her sister's words hit her. She looked at both their faces alternately. Carol seemed a bit uncomfortable, but Vanessa was almost proud. You never intended for us to board from the beginning? Amy's voice trembled. Carol lowered her voice. You can board. This cruise is a great opportunity to meet people. You should enjoy it. It's time to start a new life after being a single mother for 5 years. Aiden pulled Amy's hand. In a small voice he asked, Mom, am I not family? His blue eyes shimmered with tears. Amy looked at her son, her heart aching at his hurt expression. Then she looked up at her mother and sister. For the first time she felt like she was seeing their true selves. You. She was at a loss for words. Feelings of anger and betrayal overwhelmed her. Carol checked her watch irritably. Well, make up your mind. Boarding time is approaching. Aiden can wait at the port cafe. He just needs to find his way back home. Or we could send him back to your place, Vanessa suggested. He's old enough to stay by himself until we return, isn't he? Amy felt Aiden's hand trembling in hers. He was desperately trying to hold back tears. Around them, passengers were happily boarding the ship. Families smiling, couples gazing lovingly at each other, and the cold calculation of her family. The contrast was so stark that Amy felt dizzy for a moment. Carol didn't even try to hide her irritation. You've sacrificed enough of your life for the child. It's time to think about yourself a little. Amy took a deep breath, firmly held her son's hand, and silently began to walk away. Amy, Carol called from behind. Are you joking? You're going to miss an opportunity like... Amy didn't look back. In her mind, the address of Michael's parents surfaced. Let's just go, Mom. Vanessa's voice could be heard. She's always been stubborn. We can have fun without her. Amy looked down at Aiden. He seemed confused but didn't leave her side. Where are we going? Aiden asked in a small voice. To Grandpa and Grandma's, Amy answered gently. We're going to visit Robert and Martha. Really? A small light of hope lit up Aiden's face. But what about the cruise? Amy put her arm around her son's shoulders as they walked towards the parking lot. Sometimes the unexpected turns into the best adventure. She didn't look back. But in her heart, something broke, while something else grew stronger. While feeling the pain of betrayal from her mother and sister, she also felt a strange relief at finally seeing their true nature. As she got into the car, Amy looked at the luggage piled in the back seat. Clothes and sunscreen prepared for the cruise, things that should have been wasted. But now, she was taking them to a new destination. Ready? She asked Aiden. Aiden nodded. There was still sadness in his eyes, but there was also trust. He believed in his mother. Amy started the engine. In her mind, she was already planning to call Michael's parents. They would welcome the two with open arms. As she drove away from the port, she saw the huge cruise ship in the rearview mirror. Its white hull gleamed under the sun, carrying her mother and sister away from her life. But Amy smiled. Warm Bay Area sunshine poured down on Robert and Martha's spacious garden. Light filtering through the trees created dappled patterns on the ground, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of early summer. Higher. Aiden's voice echoed throughout the garden. Robert laughed as he pushed his grandson on the swing. A retired lawyer, his gaze still held sharp intelligence. Each time Aiden soared high, Robert felt a warmth in his chest at seeing Michael's resemblance. Martha came out of the house and stood on the porch. As she fixed her silver hair, she watched her husband and grandson. Behind her gentle smile, the sadness of losing her son 5 years ago still lurked, but she found joy in the new bond with her grandson. Aiden, the lemonade is ready, Martha called out. Great. Aiden signaled his grandfather to stop the swing. Grandpa, let's drink together. Robert nodded and took his grandson's small hand. Martha smiled as she watched the two head toward the house. This unexpected visit had breathed new life into their home. In the kitchen, Amy was helping Martha. As she took fruit from the refrigerator, she watched her son and father-in-law through the window. Aiden really seems to like it here, Martha said. Last night was the first time in a long while that he slept so soundly. Amy smiled. Thank you for accepting our sudden visit. Yesterday, when she called from the port, Robert and Martha welcomed them without a moment's hesitation. When Amy explained the situation, their expressions changed to anger, but it was directed not at her, but at Carol and Vanessa. Unbelievable, Robert had said yesterday after hearing the story. What were those two thinking? Sitting at the dining table, Robert set aside his newspaper. I started some investigations this morning. Amy frowned. Investigations? About Carol and Vanessa's financial situation? He lowered his voice. I still have friends in the legal profession. Some interesting information has come up about their debts. Martha lightly tapped her husband's arm. Robert, let's not talk about that now. She turned to Amy. We've planned a wonderful vacation for you. Let's go to our cottage along the Santa Cruz coast. Aiden will love the ocean. Amy's heart swelled with gratitude. This was what family meant. People who offer unconditional love and support. The doorbell rang, and Amy turned in surprise. While Martha went to answer, Amy felt anxious. Amy. Martha returned to the living room. It's your father. Amy was surprised. She hadn't been in contact with her father for months. Even after divorcing her mother, Carol, he continued to provide regular financial support. This had created subtle tension in the relationship between Carol and Amy. Bill, Robert stood up and shook hands with him like an old friend. The two men had met before, and had built a relationship of mutual respect. I heard what happened. Bill looked at his daughter from behind his glasses. What Carol and Vanessa did. Amy was surprised. How did you know? Martha called me. Bill answered succinctly. He was a man who struggled with emotional expression, but the anger in his gaze was evident. I took immediate action. What do you mean? Amy became anxious. I've stopped the monthly payments to Carol, Bill said calmly. She relied too much on my support. That's what made her become so arrogant. But, Dad, don't worry. Bill sat down in a chair. I've given her plenty of warning. The days of using my money for extravagance are over, especially if she's going to hurt my grandson and you in the process. At that moment, Aiden and Robert came into the kitchen. Aiden, holding lemonade, seemed to be having some secret conversation with his grandfather. When he saw Bill, he hesitated for a moment but quickly ran over. "Grandpa." Bill's stern expression softened. He hugged his grandson, seeing Michael in the boy's figure. "You've grown." Amy felt a warmth in her chest as she watched her father and son. Around her was family in the truest sense. She was deeply grateful that she had secured Aiden's education fund with Michael's insurance money. The fact that her mother and sister might have been targeting it was painful, but she had protected her son's future. That afternoon, the adults gathered on the porch, watching Aiden play in the garden. "I wonder how the cruise is going," Amy thought aloud. "Probably not as they dreamed," Robert laughed. "From my research, I hear this cruise has special events for single seniors. Carol is definitely on the hunt, it seems." Martha sighed lightly. "They'll face the consequences of their actions." Those words became prophetic. A few days later, Amy's smartphone began receiving consecutive calls from an unknown number. She continued to ignore them, but eventually, a text message arrived. "Please, I'm in terrible trouble. Help me." It was from Vanessa. Amy, who had been spending peaceful time at the Santa Cruz cottage, thought about her mother and sister for the first time when she read the message. She watched Aiden catching crabs with Robert on the beach, and debated whether to reply to the message. That night, while Martha was preparing dinner, Amy sat on the porch, gazing at the ocean. Robert sat down beside her. "Something seems to be troubling you," he said gently. Amy hesitantly told him about Vanessa's message. Robert listened with a serious expression. "They are definitely in trouble," he said. "According to my sources, there were some issues on the cruise. Carol received warnings from the captain, and she began to be avoided by the wealthy men she was targeting. Add to that your father stopping his support and Vanessa's spending habits." He shook his head. "I think they're in quite a difficult financial situation." Amy was hit with complex emotions, anger at being betrayed, yet love for her family, and concern about the impact on Aiden. "What do you think I should do?" she asked Robert. Robert gazed at the ocean, silent for a while. "That's for you to decide, Amy. Just remember, you can't choose your family, but you can choose how to deal with them." From the cottage, they could hear Aiden's laughter. He seemed to be baking cookies with Martha. Amy took out her smartphone and sent Vanessa a short message. "When and where should we meet?" The reply came immediately. "Tomorrow, at your apartment." "Thank you so much." Amy looked at Robert. "I need to go back to San Francisco tomorrow." Robert nodded. "Let's go together. Aiden can stay with us." "No," Amy said slowly. "Aiden will come with me. He's a part of the family, and he needs to learn how to face family issues." Robert looked at her with surprise, but his expression quickly changed to understanding and respect. "Michael would be proud of you." When the doorbell of Amy's apartment rang, she instantly felt tension running through her body. Aiden sat next to her on the sofa, looking up at his mother with an anxious expression. "It's okay." Amy lightly patted her son's shoulder, smiling encouragingly. In the corner of the living room, Robert and Martha sat quietly. They were present at Amy's request. Opening the door, she found Carol and Vanessa looking haggard. Both were without their usual flashy clothes or accessories, and their tired faces had no makeup. "Amy?" Carol's voice trembled. Her eyes were moist with tears. "Thank you for seeing us." Amy said nothing and invited them in. When they entered the living room and noticed Robert and Martha's presence, they momentarily faltered. "Sit down," Amy said calmly. Carol and Vanessa sat on the sofa. When Vanessa's gaze turned to Aiden, a color of regret appeared on her face. Aiden averted his eyes from her and unconsciously held Amy's hand. "First, I want to say," Carol said, wiping away tears, "I'm truly sorry. What we did is unforgivable." Vanessa nodded too. "We only thought about ourselves. Especially me." She choked on her words. Amy observed the two calmly. Their regret seemed genuine, but it was difficult to judge whether it was due to their desperate situation or true reflection. "What situation are you in now?" Amy asked. "I can't pay the rent," Carol admitted frankly. "With Bill's support gone, my savings are almost depleted. After the incidents on the cruise, my reputation has been damaged." "I heard you caused a commotion with the captain," Amy said. Carol lowered her eyes in embarrassment. "I was a bit too aggressive. Towards a certain gentleman. Mom drank too much and made a scene in the ship's VIP lounge." Vanessa added information. "After that, we were avoided by other passengers." And you? Amy turned to Vanessa. Vanessa said, choosing her words. I exceeded my credit card limit. I was fired from the store, and I'm behind on rent. Amy took a deep breath and chose her words. What do you want? A temporary place to stay and a little help, Carol said carefully. Just until we get back on our feet. A heavy silence flowed through the room. Robert cleared his throat, asking permission to speak. From a legal perspective, he began quietly. Carol and Vanessa's actions might have elements of fraud. If they intentionally brought Amy and Aiden to the port with no intention of letting them board, Martha joined in. And from a psychological standpoint, the emotional damage caused to Aiden in particular is immeasurable. Carol and Vanessa were at a loss for words, staring only at the floor. Then, an unexpected voice spoke. I want to forgive Grandma and Aunt. Everyone looked at Aiden. The 10-year-old boy stood up quietly, taking a deep breath as if to gather courage. Everyone makes mistakes, he continued. When I lost Dad, I hurt my friends out of anger, but my teacher forgave me. But the teacher said that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. The room fell completely silent. Amy looked at her son with a mixture of surprise and pride. Carol reached out toward her grandson but stopped midway. I haven't been the kind of grandmother deserving of your kindness. Amy stared at Aiden, then looked at her mother and sister. Complex emotions intertwined in her heart. Anger, the pain of betrayal, but simultaneously, the beauty of the mercy Aiden had shown. I can't give an answer right away, Amy finally said. But Aiden's words carry weight. Complete forgiveness is still difficult, but I'll consider conditional assistance. Robert and Martha exchanged surprised looks but quickly showed understanding. Together, they had walked the difficult path of forgiving the person responsible for the accident that took Michael's life. They knew firsthand that forgiveness brings healing. I'll give you a 1-year grace period, Amy continued. During that time, I want to see sincere efforts towards independence and relationship repair. Hope returned to Carol and Vanessa's faces. What are the conditions? Vanessa timidly asked. First, both of you will receive vocational counseling, Amy stated clearly. And create a debt repayment plan. I will provide financial assistance, but it's not unlimited. And most importantly, she looked toward Aiden, becoming a real family for him. That's not a right, but something earned through effort. Carol nodded. In her eyes now, true regret and determination were visible. I promise, Vanessa also agreed. Thank you for the chance. I won't betray you. Amy didn't fully believe yet, but she chose to have hope. Family bonds can be reconnected, even if broken, sometimes coming back stronger. Aiden stood up from the sofa and quietly approached Carol and Vanessa. Can we all have dinner together? He asked. Mom's lasagna is really delicious. Amy smiled as she felt the tension in the room gradually dissolving. She knew this wasn't complete reconciliation, that it would take time to regain trust. But today was a step toward a new beginning. 6 months later, San Francisco's autumn sunlight was painting the city gold. Looking out the office window, Amy reflected on the changes over the past half year. The phone rang, pulling her back from her thoughts. It's your mother, the secretary announced. Thank you. Put her through, Amy said, taking a deep breath. Amy, Carol's voice had shed its former arrogance. Can I attend Aiden's baseball game this afternoon? Of course, Mom, Amy smiled. I'll finish work early. Carol now volunteers at a local senior center. What began as court-ordered community service had gradually become meaningful to her. Interaction with less fortunate elderly people was slowly changing her values. After hanging up, Amy received a text message from Vanessa on her cell phone. Want to go shopping for Aiden's birthday present together? Do you have time this Saturday? Vanessa had changed too. She had joined a vocational training program and started an internship at a small accounting firm. It wasn't a position Amy had arranged, she had found it herself. Her spending habits weren't completely cured, but she was seriously adhering to her debt repayment plan. Weekend dinners at Amy's home had become a tradition. Michael's parents occasionally participated, and the tension with Carol was gradually easing. Of course, sometimes old habits would surface. Carol might start gossiping about a wealthy widow in the neighborhood, or Vanessa might show up wearing expensive brand items. But the biggest change was seen in Aiden. Now 11 years old, he was more confident, with good relationships at school and with friends. Having overcome the family crisis, he had developed strength and compassion. That evening, after Aiden's baseball game, they held a small picnic in the park. "Look what I found, a photo," Martha said, opening an album. There was a picture of Michael as a child. "He looks just like Aiden." Carol peered at the photo and quietly nodded. "He really does." She gazed at her grandson, seeing the late son-in-law's likeness in his face. "I may have been avoiding seeing it all this time." Robert sat down beside her, beer in hand. "People can change. Rather, people are constantly changing." "Yes," Carol quietly agreed. "In my case, the change for the better came too late, but it's never too late." Amy joined in. "What matters is how we walk from here." Aiden began to get bored with the adults' conversation and ran off to play with other children. Watching his figure illuminated by the sunset, Amy felt her heart warm. The definition of family had forever changed for her. It wasn't just blood ties but supporting each other, encouraging growth, and sometimes showing tough love. And most importantly, what Aiden had taught her. The possibility of forgiveness and new beginnings. The late autumn wind danced around them, seeming to carry hope for the future.